Good morning, Intenders.
Good morning.
Welcome and welcome back to Morning Intentions. Today is Tuesday, February 24th. We're continuing on our month of alignment with self. Like as I said yesterday, it's our final week. It's the home stretch, but that doesn't mean we're done. We still have today and 3 more days to go.
And today I wanted to do a little check-in before we get started.
Okay, what do you want to check in about?
2 things I wanted to check in about. The first one is about our fasting from being out of alignment. It's been about 10 days since we decided to fast from being out of alignment. Kind of did that as a group. We're going to try our best, and if we notice we're out of alignment, we're going to reel ourselves back in, and we've been talking about some of the things that can get in the way, like guilt and letting that pendulum swing way too far. Ada, how are you doing with your fast from being out of alignment with yourself?
I'm doing pretty well, and I have to thank you for that, though.
Me? Little old me?
Little old you.
What did I do?
You do an excellent job because I can tell you are also fasting from being out of alignment, and that helps me. You'll say to me, "Oh, no, that's going to be too much for me." Or that's not really what I want to do. That doesn't resonate with me.
Is it strange for me to say that? Do you find that strange?
I find it strange because you haven't done it very much, but I also find it relieving because, first of all, I want to know. I want you to be in alignment with self. I want you to be anchored. That's where it's relieving, but then also gives me permission to check in too. Because there's a lot of times I'll probably bulldoze my own boundaries in some place and say, well, maybe I don't really want to do that, but no one else is saying anything, so I'll just keep on going. And it's not like it's a bad thing or I want to have like major regret about it, but maybe it's just like something a little extra that I wouldn't normally put myself through. You're bringing things up and saying, I don't really want to do that, or that's going to be too late. I don't want to do that to my body. I want to be anchored. I want to be in alignment. And that says, oh, you can do that? And then it gives me permission then to say, yeah, you're right. I feel the same way. And then I've become a little more courageous and saying, I don't think I want to do that. And you just say, okay. It makes a difference.
It does make a difference. Hopefully the pendulum isn't swinging too far, but I was going to say I've been hyper-vigilant, but let's just say I've been vigilant.
It hasn't been hyper.
It hasn't been hyper to you? It hasn't been hyper?
From an outsider, it has not been hyper. And I was going to say, it makes a difference to check in. And I also wanted to say a little something else to add to that. It also makes a difference having people in our lives who are working on the same things.
Yes, definitely. I know for me, the fasting from being out of alignment is I'm having the same sort of experience that I had when I said, I'm going to fast from unforgiveness. I don't think of myself as a person who's holding a lot of grudges and all of that, but there were things that came up and kept on coming up, like the same sort of things. So I said, no, I'm not going to do this to myself. So our mentor will say to us, okay, now once this certain thing has been resolved, now you no longer have the privilege of going back and revisiting that. You're finished with that. You're moving on. And that's always so helpful when she does that. I just stop and say, she's right. The neural pathways in our brain, they want to go back to what's familiar. And if we've been in unforgiveness or if we've been in a position where we've been completely out of alignment, and that's how we've shown up in life, we want to go back to the familiar. So that's where maybe it feels inside that I'm being a little hyper vigilant because the second I notice the certain feeling or feelings going on inside where I know that means I'm out of alignment with myself, I've just been stopping and saying, what else could I do in this moment that would keep me in alignment with myself and not go to this old familiar place? Shared about the conversation that I had with Don where he wanted to talk to me without his hearing aids in. Another thing I've noticed, Dawn loves to talk in hypotheticals about how to get to places or remember when we went down this road and we went down that road and then we go here and then we go there. And if I'm really busy, I find those conversations to be anxiety producing. If I'm not really busy, it's fine. But if I've got like 10 things on my mind and then he's wanting to go down this road and that road and the other road. And I love Don. I love talking with Don. But I had the nerve to say to him just this morning, this is why I wanted to bring this up. Just this morning, I said, Don, I love talking about these things when I'm not busy, but when I'm returning emails or doing this or doing that, getting into these conversations that are very detail oriented about things that I can't think about right now, it gives me anxiety. That's just the way it is. I can feel the anxiety coming up. He looked at me and he said, oh, okay. He didn't make a big deal of it. When he said, oh, okay, I loved it that he said that because he wasn't destroying any boundaries. And I also had this feeling inside, how many days, how many weeks, how many months, how many years, how many decades did I force myself to have that kind of conversation? When all I had to do is say, Don, that type of conversation in this setting that I'm in right now doesn't work for me. And he says, oh, okay. And this is where this personal responsibility comes in and personal development comes in, because many times we can think that we have to do these things or look at what this person's putting me through. But it's not really that at all. We're putting ourselves through it. And we can take responsibility and we can speak up and say, in this moment, I can't have that conversation. I'll totally have that conversation later on. It can be as simple as that. I made it much more complicated in my life and in my mind. So I've been very vigilant, and I'm really happy to hear that it's helping you as well, Ada.
That's where I'm saying it's nice when we do this work with other people. Then not only do we have a buddy to troubleshoot where are we being out of alignment, but then we start developing similar language. Oh, that doesn't feel like that's in alignment with me. Oh, okay, I'm glad you told me. Now, if you were to say that to someone else who wasn't doing this work, they may not even get what you're talking about. They may have never thought about being in alignment with self or being out of alignment with self. Maybe they just do what they think they're supposed to do, and that's all they've ever thought about and all they ever considered you could think about.
Last thing before we run out of time.
That was just the first thing, right?
That was the first thing.
Okay, now for the second thing.
When we go through Terry Cole's book next month, I want to do it in a slower way. We've heard a few comments from some of our beloved clients. A few have already started reading the book. One thing that I know that I feel out of alignment with myself is if I feel like I have to rush through a book. I don't like to rush through. Terry Cole's book is not a book that you want to rush through. I've been reading it. I agree with like 85% of what Terry Cole teaches and shares in the book and even in her classes. There's a few things that I don't agree with, and I want to be able to share those. I also want to be able to go slow enough that you and I can get feedback from our clients and address questions that come up. I do want to propose, and you and I have talked about this, and I want everyone to kind of be clear, because sometimes we can be really excited about something and then also like a little anxiety is like, oh gosh, I'm really excited about it, but then we're going to have to rush through. You and I had this conversation, Ada. We're not going to rush through Terry Cole's book. We're not going to say that we have to get it all finished in March. What we want to do is we want to look at these very important concepts. Some of them are review concepts if you're a client of ours, because Terry Cole has pretty much taught us everything we know about boundaries, and her stuff works, changed my life. Yet we want to create space for if you want to email us, if you want to reach out, if you want to talk about it in your sessions, if you happen to be a client who comes in for sessions, that we can talk about these things and all of us can go through the book at a reasonable pace so that we can enjoy the opportunity that we're all going to have to learn from Terry Cole and start applying her teaching to our lives.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I remember a few months ago, I read a book for a class. I read it in 2 weeks. I could understand the material enough when it came to like the exam part, but honestly, I don't remember it at all. So I don't want us to have that experience where we just blow through the book and say, yeah, okay, we're done. And then 2 months later, we forget everything about it. We want to read really for our 3 levels of growth, to gain those insights, to take the action, and then reach that level of integration. Let's circle back, though, to the first thing that Annette brought up, and let's have a curiosity question for today's intention. How am I doing with my fast from being out of alignment with myself? How am I doing with my fast from being out of alignment with myself? Thank you so much for joining us today. Our day is better because you are part of our day. See you tomorrow.
See you then.